Welcome to live Daily Tottenham Hotspur news with me, Barnaby Slater. It's a slow news week for sure, although it has been somewhat ramped up by Maurizio Pochettino twerking for Tottenham fans' attention. Do you believe in this? Do you think there's anything in it? You've seen the photo, the Daniel Levy and Maurizio Pochettino at the North London cafe that's only been open since 2024, sending Tottenham fans wild with speculation. I don't know. But as well as all that, the transfer rumour mill seems to be hotting up as the end of the season gets closer and closer. I'll bring you the latest tittle tattle. Meanwhile, Don Fabio Paratici is about to finally cut ties with the club in favour of a reunion with our greatest ever fullback. No, I'm not talking about Kyle Walker. Emerson Royale, of course. And some positive news from the Next Gen annual list of best young talents in world football as Spurs have 5 on that rundown. So that's something. We'll listen more on today's daily live Tottenham Hotspur news. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please, as ever, if you're on YouTube, do give this video a like. Please press subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And if you're on YouTube and you haven't already, please come and give me a follow or subscribe on the audio podcast platforms, be that Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. Really helps me. So go over, type in the Spurred On podcast to the search engine and give me a subscribe or a follow there. And listen to me whilst you're out running or driving or walking the dog or anything. But let's get into the Tottenham Hotspur news. And Fabrizio Romano has said that Andoni Iraola is one of several managers being monitored by Spurs, but no decision has yet been made on Ange Postecoglou's future with the Europa League campaign still alive. So that makes sense, doesn't it? They're hedging their bets the way that Tottenham Hotspur do, but Iraola is on that list. Let me know in the comments, guys, just with the words of the name of the manager that you think will be, not that you think should be, but that you think will be the Tottenham Hotspur manager next season. Just write it in the comments. Who will be the manager? It'd be interesting to see what you guys think. Meanwhile, talking about Ange, Tim Sherwood, Tiger Tim Sherwood, gilet-wearing Tim Sherwood, he who brought the gilet back into fashion single-handedly during his run as Tottenham's caretaker manager, he has given his thoughts on Spurs and the management situation. He says there have been some fantastic managers at Tottenham. They've had the trophy managers such as Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte. They had Nuno Espirito Santo, who they couldn't get out of the club quick enough. And now he's third in the Premier League. There's no guaranteed manager to come in. So even Tim is unsure of what Spurs are going to do, let alone what they should do. The next news, as I mentioned in the opening, Fabio Paratici has agreed to become AC Milan's next sporting director and has snubbed a potential return to Tottenham Hotspur. That's according to Graham Bailey, the chief correspondent at TBR Football. Well, from what we know, Don Fabio has been doing some consultancy work at Spurs, but FOB asked me in the comments, said if Paratici isn't available, they should hire Leonardo Gamanini. Well, what I was going to say is I just don't think there's a place for Paratici to have a full-time job at Spurs anymore, is there? Because surely that would undermine Johan Lange's position at the club. But, you know, Daniel Levy has appointed Johan Lange as head of recruitment, I think is his job title. And Paratici as a consultant, I guess, works because then he can, you know, give his thoughts on who Spurs should get and recommend people to Johan Lange. But for someone to come in as a sporting director above Johan Lange, I'm not really sure that that's likely. Although Levy did do something similar back in the day when we had Franco Baldini. Do you remember that? Franco Baldini was our sporting director. He had previously been the assistant or had worked with Sven-Göran Eriksson and Tord Grip and had always been in Italian football. So it just shows that Levy is a bit of a sucker for a big name when it comes to the sporting director. So who knows? But if Don Fabio Paratici is going to Milan, good luck to him, taking his slightly underhand way of dealing with things there, his addiction to iPhone headphone speakers and microphones. You know, I'm sure he can pick up some young Italian talent for AC Milan. Nick in Hong Kong says, hi, Barnaby, do we really need Kyle Walker-Peters back at Tottenham? He's improved, but not enough in my opinion. I actually haven't seen that report. Walker-Peters has been on Spurs' list for a while because he's homegrown talent, club-trained talent, and is running down his contract at Southampton and can play both sides as a fullback. Obviously, he's had a lot of game time at Spurs, but I'll stick to what I've always said about Walker-Peters, which is I'm not sure why he would have left Spurs to get Premier League game time, gone to Southampton, become a Premier League regular, also did really well when they were in the championship, sorry, and then rejoin Spurs to become, at best, a squad player. I think it's very unlikely. I mean, who knows? But it's very unlikely he would oust Porro or Spence on the right, or Udogie or Spence on the left. He'd make a decent squad player. But again, one thing I just want to talk about when it comes to potential signings coming in, I really think we need to add some physicality into the team. And no offense to Walker-Peters, but he's another small guy. And as well as being small, he's a good defender and he's good positionally, but he's not quick enough to get himself out of trouble, like some other kind of smaller fullbacks can, like maybe Tariq Lamptey, for instance. So for me, I'm not sure, but I guess Daniel Levy loves a kind of bargain, and he would be a bit of a bargain with his contract running down and with him being homegrown and club trained. That would work in terms of us, making the most of our 25-man possibility for squads, either in Europe or in the Premier League. So never say never. In terms of answers to my question about who you think will be the manager next season, Adventurous says Ange. C9 Manic says hoping Iraola. Jojo Sammy says Ange. Zabu says Pochettino 1. Xabi. Hernandez 2. Thomas Frank 3. So, some different opinion there. Jojo Sammy says going backwards with Poch. He's had his time. I mean, let's be honest, guys. I know that it's a fair angle to say that. Some people always say never go back, but it's not like we've done anywhere near as well since Poch has left with any of the managers we've had. So I don't really necessarily agree with that. Simon Cohen says, hi, Barnaby, did you see the picture of Levy and Pochettino having coffee in Barnet the other day? Yeah, well, I mentioned that at the top of the show, Simon. Thank you for your comment. Some reports early on about that picture was that it was old, and then some people came out the woodworks doing some stalking research saying actually that cafe has only opened in 2024, so it must be relatively new. That picture has now been opened up to show that the player liaison officer, the bald guy who's always involved on the sidelines, who looks a bit like Brad Friedel, he was there as well. He is, I think, Daniel Levy's brother-in-law, and there were 4 of them in all. I think for me, the way I look at that, I'd love to get excited about it, but I think for me, it's like, why would they do it so publicly if there was something really underhand about it? I actually think it's a bit of a bad look optics-wise for Levy to have done that so publicly, because it really puts pressure on Postecoglou in a time where, as if he's not under pressure enough. But I'm not sure I'm 100% enough that was recent to really go hard on it. So we'll see. Brandon in the comments says, hi, Barnaby, do you really think getting a new manager and starting a new project again will really allow us to win a trophy? Why don't we give managers 3 to 4 seasons to allow them to rebuild the team? Brandon, thank you for your comment. It's a good comment. It's a good point. I think I would be with you totally if, say, Spurs were currently in 10th or 8th. But the fact that we're in 14th, and at the end of the next game week, most likely to be 16th, I think is a little bit too far. That's why I think for me, I'm worried about Ange, alongside the thing that I always say, which is that we concede the same goal over and over again. We concede the same chances down our right and down our left over and over again, and we get too many injuries. So that's the only reason why I've started losing belief in Ange. I will again say what I always say, desperate for it to work for him. I think he's a great guy. I love him. I can see why he's like a cult figure at all of the clubs that he's managed. But this is the big leagues now. It's elite, and you can't just stick to the same thing time and time again, because you will, as we have, keep conceding the same goals. We don't stop crosses at source, and we don't mark the back post, and opposition see that, and therefore we concede the same goal time and time again. Dan Paskin says, we are going backwards with Ange. PKD81, thank you for your comment, says, Johnny Cardoso is going to 100% add that physicality. He might be a bit of a, he's quite stacked, but he's not tall, is he? He's about 5 foot, well, what he looks like, it's about 5'10", I don't know. Google it for me. But anyway, PKD goes on, says he's aggressive and has a mean streak, something we've needed for several seasons. Yeah, but just to play devil's advocate to that, I'm not going to pretend, PKD, that I've watched every game of Betis this season. But Højbjerg gave us aggression and physicality. So we can't say that we needed that for several seasons. What we need is aggression, physicality with quality on the ball as well. I've seen some good clips of Cardoso, him bringing it down on the turn, on his chest against Real Madrid and Luka Modric. That looked good, but we need something absolutely incredible in that sixth position if we're going to really go up a level. And I hope Cardoso, if he does come to Spurs, is that man. But let's see. Let's see what happens. C9 Mannix says Vuskovic coming through the door. That is true. And some physicality from him. And Van der Ven can deputise on the left. Not sure wing back is the depth concern. I'm not sure for me, Van der Ven, although he looked good when he played on the left in that game towards the end of last season, scored an absolute banger, didn't he? I'm not sure he's long-term fit as a left back. I think, and I'll go into this because I'm going to talk about us being in for another fullback. But I think the fact that we were so hard in for Patrick Dorgu before he went to Manchester United shows that we are looking for some more depth in the fullback positions. Eugene, thank you for your comments. Says, I think the only way Ange can save his job is if we don't lose any of our remaining league games, draws and wins, no losses, and wins the Europa League. Eugene, I'll go this far. I'll say if he doesn't lose any Premier League games from here on in and we win the Europa League, he will definitely keep his job. Definitely. However, I would probably put it as far as to say if we don't win the Europa League, maybe at a push get to the final, he'll keep his job, but I'm not sure. Geo1961 says, Ange will be manager if he wins Europa. Levy has clearly set European qualification as minimum expectation. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think that's probably realistic. Okay, let's go into this news that Spurs have 5 players in Goal's Next Gen list, which is a ranking of the 50 best young talents this year born on or after January the 1st, 2006. So, in 43rd place in the top 50, Yang Min Hyuk, currently on loan at QPR, who we brought in from South Korea. So that's pretty exciting. From what I've seen from his time at QPR so far on loan, he started getting some game time off the bench. Then he started a game or two. And then recently he hasn't been involved so much. I don't know if he's got an injury or not. Maybe you can help me and let me know in the comments. Then 26th place, the aforementioned Luka Vuskovic, currently on loan at Westerlo in Belgium. Looks like an absolute baller, centre half, huge, real physicality, good on the ball, loves a good pass, a crossfield ball, amazing finisher. If you haven't seen the overhead kick he finished from a corner earlier this season, he's also the top scoring defender, I think, certainly in Belgium, maybe even in European football this season. So a real talent, not that quick though. So would probably have to play alongside Van der Ven or someone with requisite pace, Kevin Danso as well. But he's still only a kid. I think he's like 17, 18 years old, Vuskovic, a real talent for the future. He comes in this summer. Then 22nd on the list, Mikey Moore. What can we say about Mikey Moore that we haven't? Just a little bit of an argument, I'd say, as to whether he suits at this stage of his career playing off the left or off the right. I always think he does better off the right. Remember that game he played against Ferencvaros, coming in off the right and driving in narrow where defenders didn't want to go with him. But 22nd on the Next Gen list, very exciting for Mikey Moore. Then up into the top 20, 16th, Lucas Bergvall. Currently, in my opinion, the number 1 name on the team sheet for Tottenham Hotspur. That is how good the second half of his season has been. He has desire. He shows motivation. He's dragging a lot of those other midfielders along with him at the moment and thoroughly deserves his place at 16th on the Next Gen list. And then in 13th place, just outside the top 10, and our 5th player in the top 50, Archie Gray, or as I call him, Sir Archie of Gray. The future of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club could be our next Steve Perryman. If he stays at the club for 10, 15 years, he could be our highest ever appearance maker. He had his debut in midfield, or his first game in midfield at the weekend. I don't think he did anything wrong, really. A couple of bad touches, but just getting used to it. But he's been brilliant at centre-half. And maybe his career might go the same way Gary Mabbutt's career went, for those of you a little bit older. Gary Mabbutt, who was the captain when we lifted the FA Cup in 1991. He was brought, I think, from Bristol Rovers initially as a midfielder, and then really made his career as centre-half for over a decade at Tottenham Hotspur, and a real Mr. Tottenham. Both him and Steve Perryman, Mr. Tottenham. And Archie Gray, if he stayed at Tottenham for the long term, could become someone like that. So really great that all 5 of them made it into the Next Gen list. And I remember the last few Next Gen lists. I don't think Spurs have had many players in there at all, if any, since the likes of Dele Alli coming through. So, yeah, that is exciting news. let's have a look what you guys are saying. John Mansfield, the best backline would be Stuart Pearce, Stuart Pearce, Stuart Pearce, and Stuart Pearce. Thou shalt not pass. Yeah, we could do with a young Stuart Pearce, but pretty hard to find these days. Stuart Pearce, for any of you too young to remember, was a First Division Premier League stalwart at Nottingham Forest and played for England in the 80s and the 90s. And he was a double hard bastard, to say the least. Nick in Hong Kong says, our Ange ball has been sussed. We can't compete this way. Robert Yee says, think if Valverde doesn't win it all, he'll get fired by Bilbao and Iraola replace him going back home. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. Obviously, Bilbao still in the Europa League. The final is there. So that'll be what they're looking to do. And maybe Iraola will keep his powder dry and his options open. Zabu Zed says, the Ange ball we started with is now looking more like koala ball. Harsh. Geo961 says, Levy will be lining up multiple options if we have no European qualification. He may also be waiting for new owners to make the decision. I doubt he's, it's a nice idea. I doubt Levy is waiting for new owners to make any decision, guys. Realistically, I don't think we're getting new owners anytime soon. I'm sorry to disappoint, but Levy is driving far too hard a bargain. He wants, I'm sure of it, he wants some success on the pitch at Tottenham Hotspur. He wants it to happen whilst he's still in charge so that he can't be seen as, the person who who built, just as the money man who built the club up, but didn't take advantage of it. Got a super chat here from C9 Manic. Thank you so much. Says, love the stream, Barnaby. Personally think the problem is that the six quite literally can't cover the ground needed to given our tendency to invert both wing backs into attack. They have to cover all of that ground. Yes, mate. Totally agree. Thank you so much for that super chat. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all of your support, guys. All of you who are members as well. Really appreciate it. £1 a month is what it costs. It really helps me make this this daily content for you. You can become a Patreon member or a YouTube member. All the details of how are in the description box below. But C9 Manic, thanks so much for that super chat. And yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think really if he's going to invert both of the fullbacks as he wants to do, and not many other clubs invert both of them, you've got to have a double pivot in there to help to get one of them across to cover that gap where the fullbacks are, and nobody seems to be doing that. So that's why we keep conceding chances down both of ththose sides. PKD81 in reply to my request of how tall Cardoso is. He's actually taller than I thought, 6'1" or 1m86. All right, so fair enough. Yeah, he should bring some physicality. PKD, maybe you can let me know in the comments. Is he definitely better than Pierre-Emile Højbjerg was? Because Højbjerg got a bad rap. Listen, let's not forget this. When we started doing well under Pochettino, it was because he brought Eric Dyer across from, I think he played his first game for Spurs against West Ham at right back. And then he was brought into the club really as a centre back, but he put him in as defensive midfielder. And really what Dyer would do is when we had the ball, he would, or when we didn't have the ball, sorry, he would drop in as almost like a third centre half in between Alderweireld and Vertonghen and just bring that solidity. And maybe we need something a little bit like that again. Is there someone we can bring in who will just drop in to make a three when we haven't got the ball to stop those transitions happening? Maybe that's what we could do. Deb says, I missed the starting of this. What does Fabrizio reveal about... wait, sorry, it's just flicked past you, Deb. Sorry about that. But anyway, in answer to your question, he has revealed that Iraola is indeed at the top of Tottenham's list, but there are several managers on that list, and they haven't made a decision as yet about big Ange Postecoglou. David Hallworth says he'd like Thomas Frank in charge. I like Frank. I think he's a good man manager. He has shown previously that he will play different styles of football depending on what level of players he's got. He changes things up. I was a little bit surprised quite how direct Brentford went against us when we played them away and won 2-0 a month or two ago. And that put me off Frank a little bit, but maybe that's just because he thought that was the best way to beat Spurs. And if he came in at Spurs, he wouldn't play that direct, but I'm not really sure. We'll see. Brandon De Jong, says, I do agree we concede the same goals and Ange does need to change that. But as fans, we need to also be realistic in terms of how long a rebuild actually takes. We need a solid number 6 to make a change. Listen, I don't disagree, mate. And thank you so much for your comment. But I would say we've had rebuilds before. I'd say Pochettino had to do a rebuild. And at no point were we 14th or 16th in the league under him. At no point were we 14th or 16th in the league under Martin Jol, and he had to deal with a rebuild. So it is a bit problematic for Ange, just how far we have slipped. And that's why I think the fan base are turning. Robert says, we tried it with Jose and Conte. Levy won't get the caliber players a top manager wants, so it'll be a pointless appointment. Well, I think that's probably why we're looking at managers who have shown that they've done well with clubs who buy young, who buy talent with sell-on fees, because that's the situation Spurs are in strategy-wise at the moment. We're trying to be a kind of Dortmund where we buy exciting young talent and it grows with Tottenham Hotspur. So I don't think Tottenham are going to go after a Jose or a Conte again. I just can't see that happening. Roundtable talks as Cardoso is behind players on the US men's national team that most of this fan base turn their nose up at. How are we trying to say now that he is the answer? Okay, so Roundtable, who is he behind that were on Spurs' list for Pochettino's team, for the US team? Not sure about that. Deb says, is Mikey Moore leaving Spurs? Absolutely not. I cannot see a world where that happens. Geo1961 again says, thanks for your comments. Says, with no European qualification, we might have an interim coach while we wait for Poch. I hear from a good source there have been discussions. Poch would be a good coach for next generation of players. I was wondering, and this is a bit pie in the sky, but I was wondering, is there a world where Levy asks Pochettino if he can double up job-wise between now and the summer? Take the Spurs job as an interim until the summer, and then he can go off in the summer and manage America again. And Pochettino gets a shot at that Europa League run. It would be pretty unfair on Ange, considering he took us that way, but, realistically, his levels in the league haven't been good enough. So I don't think anyone would scream out that would be a problem, apart from maybe some of the Australian people who are very behind Ange. And I understand why they are. I understand, like I said, why he's a cult figure. And there's nothing I'd like more than for Ange to win the Europa League. Okay, let's go into some transfer details. Spurs are apparently ahead of West Ham in the race for Ryan Alt-Nouri from Wolves. The two London clubs set to go head-to-head for the Wolves left back this summer, but apparently Spurs have made an offer of £30 million. And as I said earlier, it makes sense to me that we're going to be going for another left back, considering how hard we were trying to get Patrick Dorgu before he went to Manchester United. Alt-Nouri is class, Premier League experience, someone who could come straight into the team and boost us in terms of first team and squad straight away. So that makes sense to me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you like Ryan Alt-Nouri to come to Spurs? Guys, got nearly 200 of you watching concurrently. Thanks so much for your support. Let's get it up to 50 likes. If you haven't pressed that like button on YouTube yet, please do. Let's get up to 50. Okay, some other transfer news. Spurs are keen on signing Stuttgart attacking midfielder Enzo Milo during this summer transfer window. The French attacking midfielder has done well for the German club, 8 goals and 7 assists this season. He is reportedly open to moving away from Germany this summer and is looking to take the next step, which could well be the Premier League. Apparently, though, Arsenal are also keen on the player. Be interesting to see if Spurs could win that race. Apparently a release clause of just under 20 million euros. So that seems very doable. Excuse me. Also, another player continually comes up on Tottenham's list. More reports about us potentially looking to sign Joe Bellingham from Sunderland. He is open to reaching the next step in his career, aka the Premier League, but Sunderland looking to get a sizable transfer fee. And Tottenham aren't the only club interested, as Manchester United, Chelsea, obviously, Brentford, Brighton and Forest also contemplating making a move for him. I hope he's not another player that we miss out on and regret, like Morgan Rogers. For a long time, we were interested in Morgan Rogers when he was playing in the Championship, and Aston Villa pulled the trigger on getting him in. Tottenham didn't. And let's say that is a regret, because he has been ripping it up in the Premier League and is such a talent, going to play for England as well. We mentioned a lot about Johnny Cardoso today. Betis apparently fear that he will depart this summer, with Spurs having that 25 million euro option to buy him. And Betis apparently already looking at other replacements. So there you go. Arthur Morgan in the comments says, honestly, once we've lost versus Frankfurt, we can give Mason a proper shot. He learned a lot in the last years. I'm afraid I don't have a problem with Ryan Mason. A lot of Spurs fans do. A lot of Spurs fans, I think, quite weirdly blame him, just because he's been, I think, on the management team of Jose and Conte and now Big Ange. But I don't blame him for anything. But I don't think the fan base as a whole would be happy if he came in as caretaker manager again, be that on his own or with Matty Wells or whatever. I just don't think that's going to work. Nick says, do we need a Scot in our team, aka the 60s, like we did in the 60s team? Not much Scottish talent. Although one thing I will say, and this is something I thought when he was at Man United, and I'm not saying I want him to come to Spurs, but Scott McTominay was rumoured to be on Tottenham's list. I think back when Conte was manager. And I always was surprised at how Man United fans looked at Scott McTominay, because he got them out of trouble so many times, but it was almost like they didn't see him as a sexy enough player to play for them. And then he's gone to Napoli and they love him at Napoli. They love him. And it just shows there's almost like an attitude towards a certain type of player. If he's a grafter, if he's a workhorse, even if he pops up with late goals to save you at a club like Manchester United. And it happens at Spurs as well. And actually, Zabu Z, they in the comments has said this: Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is the 9th highest rated player in Ligue 1, according to SofaScore. So he's having a great season in France. He's at a club where he's respected, where he's appreciated, but the fan base at Spurs almost didn't like Pierre because he was too meat and potatoes. And I think maybe we have to try to stop feeling like that around in every team, even where you have amazing players, paradise players, the likes of Modric, the likes of Bale, the likes of Berbatov. You need your meat and potato players as well. And I think Bergvall will be one of our paradise players, but we need players around him who can get the ball to him, win the ball off oppositions. And maybe Cardoso will become that player. 25 million euros does seem like a bit of a steal, whether he works out or not. Okay. Nick in Hong Kong says Lucas Bergvall can be our Beckenbauer. No, I think Archie Gray is more likely to be our Beckenbauer, bringing it out of defense. Bergvall can be our next Luka Modric, I think. He really reminds me, Bergvall, almost though with a bit more kind of attacking drive, by which I mean like... I don't know, a bit more bite about him maybe is what I mean, and a bit more kind of interest in 50-50 tackles and driving from deep through midfield. But he reminds me of Erdegaard, Bergvall. I think he could turn into a real proper number one name on the team sheet for Spurs, who every player in the Spurs team gets the ball to first and foremost, Bergvall. And it's so exciting to me that he is acclimatized to the Premier League so quickly. And an absolute steal for what we got him for. What was it? £8 million? £10 million? Absolutely ridiculous. Maisie's Adventure says she'd like De Zerbi to come in. Wolf Mauler says Brendan Rodgers incoming. Listen, Brendan Rodgers, I don't want him as Spurs manager necessarily or at all, but he won the FA Cup at Leicester. I mean, I think we'd all take that right now. And he's doing well again at Celtic. He's got a bit of a joke. He's got an attitude that people laugh at, but he's done well pretty much everywhere he's been. Nearly won the Premier League at Liverpool, didn't he? Roundtable answers the question. So earlier on, Roundtable had said that Cardoso is behind players in the US men's national team who were previously on Spurs' list. So apparently he's behind Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie in the US men's national team under Poch at the moment. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you for that intel. Really appreciate it. Belgian Hotspur, thanks so much for commenting, mate. How are you? Says, hi, Barnaby. Poch is too honourable to screw the US men's national team. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Poch does talk a lot about his morals and not wanting to break contracts, etc. And it seems unlikely that he would leave the US men's national team before they have that home World Cup. I guess all we can hope for is that maybe Donald Trump does a mental and starts abusing him for some reason. But it's hard to see Poch coming in realistically. Certainly not full-time anytime before that World Cup. Robert says, I'm just worried with Betis midfielder. Not the same kind of midfielder as Gio. Once again, Northern Spanish football translates better than rest of Spain. Strong working class support of football in Northern Spain. Okay. Paul G says, yes, another left back makes sense. Stephen Flynn says, Levy and Poch are friends. Didn't Levy say it was the hardest decision he had to make, sacking Poch? Yeah, and Pochettino has come out and said that he has a strong personal relationship with Levy. And that's fair enough, but I think the fact, I still think it's optics-wise a mistake from Levy to have, if this did indeed happen recently, for him to have had a drink, a coffee, or whatever it was, out in the open with Pochettino in public, because it's not a good thing for Ange, is it? Realistically, it just doesn't look good. Let's see what else we've got here. Well, let's go into some more news. So according to some reports from Gary Jacob, Amanda Stavely, who was interested, she is obviously the former Newcastle owner who did the deal with Saudi to take Saudi to Newcastle and then has left Newcastle. But she was keen on getting together another consortium to take over at Spurs. And apparently, according to Gary Jacob, she was keen on bringing in Director of Football Dougie Freedman for Spurs if she had raised the funds necessary to complete that takeover. Dougie Freedman has just left Crystal Palace. He is taking up another job. So that's an interesting bit of intel to see how far Stavely had thought ahead if she'd been able to take, or maybe more like wrestle control at Tottenham Hotspur. But that deal doesn't look like it it is ever going to happen, really, because Levy is asking for too much money for the club and is insisting on still being involved in the club as well. Lucas Bergvall came out after the last game with some quotes. He said, "I don't think it's been a fair season, to be honest, not considering how much damage we've had," talking about the injuries. He said, "I don't know what the reason is, but as we've talked about with Dejan, there are many who've played an incredible number of minutes. It's not human, so of course it's a big factor." Yeah, I guess we do have to take that into consideration, but everybody has to deal with the same fixture list. Everybody has to deal with injuries, and it just seems like Tottenham under Big Ange have dealt with it worse. C9 Mannix says all Mason has done is try to make the best of crap situations. I agree. I don't really understand why people get on his back. Robert Yee says Rodgers would have been that scrappy footballer we needed. Talking about Morgan Rodgers. Rodgers made a goal off Vic by dominating him in the penalty box. Geo1961 wants us to get Harry Gray from Leeds, which is Archie Gray's younger brother, I believe. And C9 Mannix says Bergvall reminds me of Marquisio from those 2010s Juve teams. Industrious, physical, good on the ball, a true box-to-box midfielder. Yeah, and actually the box-to-box midfielder has kind of gone out of the game in the last 5-10 years or so, but they are worth their weight in gold, and Bergvall can be that and more, I think. I think he can also start in that sixth position. He takes up good position. He's really learned a lot in this first season. John Mansfield, thanks for your comments, says, although he got stick, Højbjerg actually loved the badge. Exactly. Camiped says one more year of Ange with the Europa League trophy and then Pochettino. I mean, that's a dream scenario, isn't it? That is a dream scenario. Ed M says, I expect Angel Gomez to be a Spurs player next season. He is, of course, the ex-Man United now defensive midfielder, plays at Lille and was in England squads under the interim manager Lee Carsley. And he is running down his contract and will be out of contract this summer. Spurs have had him on their list. Again, for me, it's about physicality. Has he got the physicality to really do it in the Premier League? If he does, if he can be like Modric and be that small, but also still strong on the ball, then great. But he's like, it's like a gust of wind would blow him away. He's so thin as well as being so small. But like I said earlier, Daniel Levy loves a bargain and he would be free in the summer. So you can see why he's on their list. Simon Cohen says, Angel Gomez has turned West Ham down. Might he join Spurs? Well, quite possibly. Who knows? Paul G says, Ange needs to win the Europa League and get Europe for next season. That is his only path to remain past this season. I agree. I think that's realistic. Eugene asks, Barnaby, if Ange wins the Europa League, do you think he should leave Spurs on a high note? Ten Hag won the FA Cup for Man United, but was kicked out. Not sure he'll be remembered for the silverware. Very good question, Eugene. I've been thinking this as well. What happens if he wins the Europa League? It'll be very hard for Daniel Levy to sack him. But what happens if he wins the Europa League and then we have a terrible start and more injuries at the beginning of next season? It will be like Man United again. But what I would say now, and I know this will be difficult to hear, but I find it, and it's difficult to say as well, but frankly, I would take a bad start next season for us to win the Europa League this season. The Europa League would be a huge trophy, much bigger than the FA Cup or the League Cup, because it gets you into the Champions League. And it's a European trophy. It would be our first since 1984. And it would just be a mega. It would be. We're talking like a proper, 3-day hangover, open bus tour down the Tottenham High Road, and everyone having to shut their gobs about us not winning anything important. So I think if we win the Europa League, no, keep Ange on and give him the chance. That's what I think. Zabu says, if Levy wants a rebuild manager, Thomas Frank is the man. What he's done at Brentford is impressive with their budget and adaptive tactics. Yeah, I agree. He deserves a shot at a big club. It wouldn't upset me if Frank or Iraola got it, or Silva, actually. I know people are scrapping about Silva, gunning for a move from Watford to get the Everton job and then taking Everton, I think, to 18th when he got sacked there. But everybody has taken Everton to 18th. Everton's just a nightmare club. So I don't really blame Silva for that. And he can put a team together. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Belgian Hotspur says, I like that other Scot that's also at Napoli. Started at Chelsea and Brighton. He'd be a good 6 in our system. That's Billy Gilmore you're thinking of. Yeah, he's never really had a great chance in the Premier League. Even at Brighton, he didn't play enough games, did he? Nick in Hong Kong says, Yang Min-hyuk was on the bench of South Korea tonight. Didn't get on, but great to experience. How did South Korea do, Nick? Let me know in the comments. Did Sonny score? Did he play? Is he fit? Is he not injured? Just let me know. Jay says, we won't get past Frankfurt. How can we even think about winning the tournament? It's comical. Jay says, Ange can't win a game of football. How is he going to win a tournament? A little bit personal on Ange there, Jay, and I left that out. Probably no need for that, I'd say. The Workers' Reading Room says, if we win Europa League, we'll be ground into paste in the Champions League with the way we play right now. That's probably true. Stephen Flynn, Archie Gray could do the Eric Dyer drop in between Romero and Van der Ven. And Ed M says, Adam Wharton is the midfielder I'd want. There are some reports that we are quite keen on Adam Wharton, but Palace would want a huge amount of money for him, and we haven't been able to get the money together to get Eze from them. So I'm not sure that's going to happen. The quote that Pochettino said when twerking for Spurs was, after 6 years, I still feel in my heart, yes, I would like one day to come back. Just come back then, Poch. We'll take you. We'll take you. Obviously, some reports yesterday, the day before, that Jamie Donnelly has decided to switch allegiance from England to Northern Ireland. He's been called up for his first senior game by Northern Ireland. I would definitely be keen to watch him play for Northern Ireland. Good opportunity for him to get elite game time and show Ange and Tottenham what he can do. He's having a great season at Leyton Orient. And before I finish, I just wanted to mention, hopefully you haven't seen it, but Sol Campbell has gone on the overlap with Gary Neville and again started slagging off Spurs. He's such a prick, that guy. He constantly comes out and says, I don't understand why I've never been offered managers' jobs. It must be because I'm black. No, mate, it's not. It's because you've shown yourself to be disloyal in a way that no other footballer has done since you did it. You were like one of the first to do the Bosman free transfer, and you did it to your club's biggest rivals, the club that you were captain of Tottenham at the time. You had offers from Man United, Inter Milan, all around Europe for much more money than you get paid for by Woolwich. You turn them down to just go down the road, and you wonder why people think you're disloyal and not to be trusted. And he comes out, he's constantly trying to do PR to change around people's opinions of him. But when he gets on the camera and he's asked questions, he can't help himself but just be so unlikable. And that is why he can't get work. And it amazes me that he keeps going for it. Just embarrassing. Today, I just saw a little clip of it, and he was basically saying, oh, it was chalk and cheese from Tottenham to Arsenal, just the quality and the standard and the levels. And it's just like, mate, listen, get over yourself. It's done. Your career is done. You're mostly best known now for the fact that you went out with Kelly Hoppen, the woman from Dragon's Den, after you finished playing football. It's just like, he's also said in his time, I don't understand why I didn't captain England. It must be because I was black. No, mate, it's because you showed a disloyalty to your teammates when you left your club that you were captain of for your biggest rivals. Simple. No one's going to give you an armband. No one's going to give you a manager's job. Just face it. You made your decision. You won lots of trophies. So yeah, you can say I made the right decision, but it's going to affect you for the rest of your life because you're always going to get abused by Spurs fans. He says sometimes, I don't understand why I still get abused by Spurs fans. It was 20 years ago because it was the worst thing that any player has ever done, certainly in Premier League history, probably in the history of top flight English football. And that is why the rest of your career has been you chasing your tail and not understanding why, because you just don't get it. You just don't get it. It's people's break from reality, football. And when you go into work on a Monday morning, after your team has lost your biggest rivals, your colleagues who support your biggest rivals are giving you loads of shit. So imagine every Spurs fan that day when you just turned up at a press conference, signed for Arsenal. Honestly, mate, you're lucky you've got away with what you have got away with, frankly. You know, it really affected Spurs fans. I was pretty young at the time, but before then, I kind of always supported all English clubs when they played in Europe because that's what my stepdad kind of told me to do. But after that, I just became the most hating of Arsenal. It was so bad. I hated it so much. So just so frustrating to see him back out in the press. I'm wary to talk about it really, but just winds me up so much. Really does. Let's see what you guys are saying. Nick says, full game for Sonny, didn't score 1-1 against Oman. You'd think South Korea would do better against Oman, wouldn't you? Jaden says, just joined. What do you think about Andrew reacting to the young fan at Fulham? Personally, I think it's being blown out of proportion because of our current situation. Interested to hear your thoughts. Yeah, I said it in a video the other day. It was by the tunnel, wasn't it? So I'm not even sure it was Spurs fans. It might have been Fulham fans trying to wind him up. Listen, what I'd say, Jaden, and thank you for your comment, is he just shouldn't be doing it. Like, it's quite simple. Your job as a manager when you're paid so much for a top club is you do not react to the fans. And he's done it time and time again. He did it at Ipswich. He did it at Tamworth. God, I tried to forget the Tamworth game, but really, for anyone trying to support Big Ange Postecoglou through all of this, remember, we drew after 90 minutes at Tamworth. My God. And yeah, like I said, just Anne should not be reacting like that. Really, really shameful. Edem says, Simple Soul is such a liar. Yes, I agree. Zabu says, do you think it'll be hard to get the right players in summer considering our league position and possible no European football? No, I don't really. I think the first problem Spurs will have in getting the players we want is that we're going to be fishing in the waters after those top teams have swum in them. As in, all those top teams who pay more wages and are in the Champions League will get first dibs. After that, though, I'd say the fact that Tottenham's strategy is quite secure in going for young players is good, and that's why Bergvall came to us, why Dragusin came to us, and I think we're still able to sell that. But the problem is that Chelsea are consistently throughout the year, not even in just the transfer windows, just going for the youngest, best talent in the world. They just signed 2 players from Sporting now. It's not even the transfer window. So any of those players that we are interested in will always go to Chelsea first. And then after that, hopefully our list is long enough that we still get players that we really, really want. Barney, B-A-H-N-Y, in the comments says, Ange's about to take us to a trophy in his second year. Tossers. All right. Well, I hope you're right, Barney. And if we are, then feel free to come on here and say, I told you so to all of us. Eddie says you can stick Sol Campbell up there. Yeah, I agree. Geo961 says, great chat, Barnaby. Loving the lunchtime slot. Thank you, mate. Really appreciate that. And Yannick, thank you for your comment, has suggested some players we should buy. Wesley at right back, Altnori left back, Bakayoko right wing, and David from Lille as striker. That would be a great summer. Let's see what happens. Oh, yeah, and Paul from Singapore says you didn't mention the appalling Google Pixel advertisement that Sol Campbell did. Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't fun either. Just making more money out of it now, Sol. But anyway, I've had another rant. And if you want to see an even bigger rant I did on it, type in Sol Campbell spurred on, and you'll find my rant from years ago where I did a piece to camera about it, which people seem to love at the time. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do give this video a like on YouTube if you haven't already. Press subscribe if you're not already a member, trying to get to 15,000 subscribers. If you have other Tottenham fans you think might like to get involved in these lunchtime shows and debates and chats, please do tell them about the channel, get them to subscribe. I really want to get to that 15,000 subscriber number. And it's slowed down a little bit recently because basically Tottenham are doing so badly that nobody wants to watch Tottenham content as much as they do when we're doing well. And I get it. I don't want to make Tottenham content as much as I do when we're doing well either. It's difficult, but we got to stick at it. And also, as I said earlier on, please do, it would really help me, all of you guys, if you could go over to the audio podcast platforms, be that Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, and give me a subscribe or a follow there and a rating. It would really help me, and I appreciate all of your support. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, guys. Nearly the weekend, and the sun's out. Have a good one. Come on, you Spurs.